In episode 5, right after Geralt portals to Cintra to meet with Istredd, well, first of all, he scares the crap out of Istredd, but then when he starts talking about monsters coming out of monoliths, Istredd doesn't really believe him. He thinks that a prank is being played on him, but that's when Geralt pulls out the head of the monster and throws it down and says, "Are you going to help me or not?" So the two head off to go see the monolith that was toppled. They walk all the way until finally they find the big crack. Istredd says it takes generations of erosion to even make a dent in the stellacite, and the stellacite is what was found in both monsters that connected them to the monolith. Istredd is floored. He thinks it's a scientific revelation and it changes everything. Geralt says, I have to go down there. He wants to look for monsters, and Istredd wants to go down there because he wants to look for scientific purposes. But when they get down there, there's no evidence that any monsters have been there at all. There's just a bunch of cracked stellacite. Istredd, speaking aloud, is trying to figure out how this happened. He tells Geralt that historians have always theorized that monoliths are scars from the conjunction. But monsters didn't exist on this planet before the conjunction. All species up until that point were separated on different spheres, until those spheres merged into one. Now, a conjunction like that would have required two things: a massive surge of energy and conduits to channel it. Previously, everybody thought that the monoliths were simply points of impact, but Istredd hypothesizes, what if they're not points of impact? What if they're the conduits? Geralt, though, thinks that he's crazy. They continue to walk to try to find a way out of the crack. And with Geralt away, Ciri will play. She continues to... Marigold, however, hasn't brought up the elephant in the room. And Vesemir walks up and says, are we going to talk about the fact that a Cintran princess has elder blood? And Marigold tells him, we don't actually know that elder blood can make Witcher mutagen. Vesemir, though, does not believe this is a coincidence. And Marigold has to point out that Ciri is a living, breathing girl, not just some tool that he can use. When Ciri finally comes in for training and she's resting and having some dinner, that's when Vesemir approaches her and says, I need to show you something. He gives a quick backstory on why the world needs Witchers and where they came from, and how when Kaer Morhen was destroyed, so is the mutagen that allowed them to make new Witchers. He then explains the flower and how she's connected with this whole thing. He tells her, with a vial of your blood, we could protect generations to come. Ciri tells Vesemir, I'll do it on one condition. I'm the first person that you use the mutagen on. And he immediately says no. He goes on to explain how, yes, Witchers now, they're warriors, but back when they were injected with the mutagen, they were scared boys, and some of them didn't make it because the mutagen is just too powerful. He can't take the chance with her because she's Geralt's kid. She yells at him, I care about you guys, and you said it yourself, Witchers are dying. And if you guys die off, then all of those boys who suffered would be for nothing. And Ciri is actually able to convince Vesemir to say yes. So they draw out the blood, Triss turns it into the mutagen, it works. But when Ciri says, I just needed a moment to prepare, Marigold asks Vesemir, for what? And when she finds out that Ciri is planning on being patient zero, she storms into Ciri's chambers and tries to convince her not to do this. Ciri seems pretty dead set, and Marigold asks, why do you want this so badly? And Ciri explains that everybody in the world was taken for her before she could find the truth, so she wants to forge her own path. Marigold tells her maybe there's another way to find out where your powers came from. Ciri agrees, and what Triss does is a mage's version of Ancestry.com. They go into Ciri's soul, and they're transported into a bar, where everybody in the bar is somebody from Ciri's life. Witchers, Dara, even Cahir is there, and so is Ciri's mother. But when they see Ciri's mother, she acknowledges them, and that's something that's not supposed to happen. It actually freaks Marigold out a little bit, and that's when everybody in the bar starts acknowledging Ciri. They're not supposed to be able to see her. The bar then transforms into a doorway, and both Ciri and Marigold walk through it. They walk down a cavern, and then they open up another door where they see Ciri's mother and father shortly after Ciri was born. Ciri's father is stressed out. He tells Ciri's mother they'd kill her if they knew. But she points out it's a prophecy. Maybe it's not true. And he says it doesn't matter if it's true. It only matters that people believe it. Ciri then realizes this is from the night that they died. But just like back in the bar, Ciri's mother looks up at her, and Marigold realizes that Ciri's mother knows she's in the room. So she tells Ciri, we gotta go. When she walks out of the room, she hears that voice calling for her. It's the same voice that Yennefer talks to, the same voice that has been talking to Ciri this entire time, and that voice says, what are you, child? As Ciri looks down on some of those flowers that grow from elder blood, the hallway that they're in transforms into an open field, and that voice continues to call to Ciri. When they walk into the open field, they see Ciri's mother, badly injured and holding a crying baby Ciri. She starts telling the baby a story about an elven warrior that was made to kill human invaders. But the story is Niveline's story. Triss, realizing that the woman is in pain, goes over to try to heal her. And that's when Ciri's mother jumps up and chokes Marigold. Her eyes roll in the back of her head, and Ciri's mother starts talking with the same voice that speaks to Ciri and Yennefer, saying, "You cannot help us. Child of elder blood, child of wrath, the time of contempt is nigh. The world will die amidst frost and be reborn in the new sun, reborn of elder blood, of the seed that has been sown, a seed that won't sprout but will burst into flame." The sky then gets red, she starts seeing horsemen coming out of it, and the whole time Marigold is screaming for Ciri to help her. But all Ciri does is yell the name Geralt. And even from Ciri's soul, by her screaming Geralt, it ends up shaking real life. Like the tree with all the Witcher's medallions. But Geralt is still in the crack with Istredd. Istred's still trying to make sense of this revelation that he's had about the monoliths. He pulls out his record and shows Geralt that a while back, he was at a dig and a monolith started having this strange vibration. And he's able to confirm through his records that it was the same night that Cintra fell. He feels like that can't be a coincidence. That would mean that that huge crack where they're standing is where the energy surge started. That activated the conduit system, and the monoliths started kind of talking to each other. Previously, they thought that these different spheres merged, and that was it. Istredd tells Geralt they didn't. They merged, and then they separated again. So when this energy surge happened, spheres collided once again, and the monsters that Geralt's encountering aren't new, they're just new to that world. Geralt then hears somebody scream his name. Istredd hears it as well, and Geralt knows that it's Ciri. Before he can even do anything, the stellacite that's laying there ends up lifting off the ground and shooting forward. When it looks like it's safe, Geralt and Istredd stand up, but all that stellacite created a new monster. It doesn't attack them, it just flies off. But Istredd had some serious questions. At this point, Geralt knows that he needs to get back to Kaer Morhen, so he has Istredd portal him out of there. And both Ciri and Marigold have returned. Kind of. I mean, they never really left, but Triss is not doing well. She's terrified, looking at Ciri and says, "Something is ending, and it's because of you. The seed that bursts into flames, it's you. You're going to destroy us all. I saw it." Ciri ends up running out of the room, finding Vesemir and saying, "All right, we're doing it. Inject me with the mutagen." But both Ciri and Vesemir end up getting caught by Geralt. Geralt chastises Vesemir. Ciri tries to stick up for him, saying this was my idea. She begs him to reconsider, and he ends up giving her some fatherly advice to just move on. He then tells her to go get her things, and it appears that they're leaving Kaer Morhen. While Istredd portaled Geralt back to Kaer Morhen, Istredd portaled himself back to Cintra. He's still trying to make sense of everything, and he goes to his records and is looking at the royal lineage, but it stops at Queen Fiona. Nobody knows where she came from. And then finally, over with Yennefer. When she goes up top, she doesn't see the bard, but she can't leave her friend behind, so she hops off the ship. Cahir, meanwhile, stays on it. He's headed for Cintra. And the bard was kidnapped by a mage named Rience, who was in a Cintra prison for 10 years because he had been able to harness fire magic. Another mage named Lydia comes up to him, talking about a way that he can get free. She tells Rience about Ciri, and that the White Flame is hunting her. But when others learn of her, they'll hunt too, and they must get to her first. He's not really interested in working with Nilfgaard, but Lydia tells him, "I'm not working for Nilfgaard." So he ends up agreeing to go to work, kidnaps the bard, and tries to extract as much information as he can as to the whereabouts of Geralt and thus Ciri. The bard tells him, "Man, I make stories up. Geralt doesn't talk a lot. He's not one for chatter." Rience, however, doesn't believe that's all the information he knows, so he continues to torture him. Yennefer knows she needs to find out where the bard went, so she ends up hiring a local prostitute to try to help her out. A little while later, the prostitute comes back, but bad news, she couldn't find anyone by the bard's name. She does, however, say, if he goes to any taverns, you should probably check there. And that's where Yennefer finds him. She stumbles in, acting like she's drunk, and Rience has no time for her. He throws her up against a wall, and sparks a flame, but Yennefer ends up spitting alcohol right into his face, which ends up putting a fireball into his face and burning him pretty good. It allows her and the bard to escape. When they get to an area they think is safe, the bard lets her know that Rience is after Geralt. He begs her to let him know, conjure a portal, but she says, "I can't." The conversation gets interrupted by a couple of people in the street, and it forces Yennefer and the bard to run away. They split up, and Yennefer is saved by the prostitute, or so she thinks. When she goes in the prostitute's house, she ends up getting rounded up by the police because the prostitute recognized the wanted poster and couldn't deny that paycheck. Now it's the bard's turn to try to free Yennefer. But as Yennefer is being held in chains, she can hear that old woman from the hut talking to her. She tells Yennefer, you know what you need. You need your magic. You know the words. Say them. And Yennefer recites the exact thing that was on the altar from the ruins. She goes back to that hut, back with the old woman. Yennefer tells the woman that she deserves access to chaos, and the woman tells Yennefer, I know how you can get it, or I know how you can steal it. Then all of a sudden, the old woman turns into Ciri. This imposter that looks a lot like Ciri tells Yennefer, I'm the key to you getting your power back. All you have to do is deliver me to a shattered black door just outside Cintra. And finally, speaking of Cintra, Cahir arrives, but things have changed. No one knows who the hell he is. He's extremely frustrated by that. He's also very surprised to see Frangilla in charge, running things with Francesca, and that relationship is going great. Dara, by the way, has also arrived and checked in. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.